Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Josh and you're watching our history. Today we're going over part 1 of the Battle of Bronkhorstspruit, which was the first major engagement of the First Boer War. So if you enjoy this, please be sure to like, and if you're new here, consider smashing the subscribe button. If this isn't your first rodeo and you haven't shown some love to the subscribe, now is your opportunity. Thank you for watching. The Battle of Bronkhorstspruit. The Battle of Bronkhorstspruit occurred during the First Boer War on the 20th of December 1880. The British, concerned about the rising number of militant Boers in the Pretoria region, recalled the 94th Regiment of Foot from various garrisons across the area. Under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Philip Robert Anstruther, approximately 250 men embarked on a challenging 188-mile journey from Lydenburg to Pretoria, accompanied by a 34-wagon column. Their objective was to reinforce British presence. However, a Boer Commando force of similar size, led by Francois Gerhardus Joubert, was tasked with intercepting and halting the British advance. This clash marked the first major engagement of the conflict. Despite being warned of the possibility of attack, the British forces were not adequately prepared for combat when they encountered the Boers. The British troops were burdened with numerous wagons, which significantly hampered their progress. On the 20th of December, approximately 24 days after being given the order to return, the column led by Anstruther faced the Boers. The Boers approached the British under a truce, demanding them to halt their march. However, Anstruther rejected their demand, and the Boers launched an attack while the British soldiers were still getting ready. In just 15 minutes, the British suffered heavy casualties and were forced to surrender. Unfortunately, Anstruther sustained severe injuries and succumbed to them a few days later. Background: Southern Africa was initially settled by Europeans in the mid-17th century when the Dutch established a provision station at the Cape of Good Hope. These early settlers, known as Vryburgers, developed a sense of independence that would shape the identity of their descendants, the Boers. However, in the early 19th century, the British seized control of the Dutch Cape Colony during the Napoleonic Wars. The British introduced a ban on slavery in 1833, which had significant financial impact on the Boers. Furthermore, the Boers grew increasingly frustrated with the British sympathetic view towards the native African population. The Boers, or Dutch settlers, held religious beliefs that deemed the African natives as inferior. In contrast, the British authorities adopted a policy of treating the natives as equals to white European settlers during disputes. This meant that when raiding tribes attacked Boer settlements, the British would deny the Boers the ability to take punitive action against them. During the late 1830s, a significant number of Boers decided to leave British rule behind and embarked on a movement known as the Great Trek. This involved thousands of pioneers who migrated from north and east from the British Cape Colony, crossing the Orange River into unclaimed lands. Along their journey, they encountered various native tribes such as the Matabele and Zulu engaging in conflicts in their pursuit of independence. The Boers established several independent republics, including the short-lived Natalia Republic, which was later annexed by the British Empire. The British presence continued to expand, leading to the annexation of the Orange River sovereignty in 1848. However, in 1852, the Sand River Convention was signed, granting independence to the Boers living north of the Vaal River and recognizing the formation of the South African Republic, also known as the Transvaal. Successive British governments had ongoing debates on colonial policy, especially regarding the southern African states under their control. Initially, there was a hands-off approach and resistance to forced mergers or federalization. However, the discovery of diamonds in 1867 and gold in 1873 changed this perspective. The potential for economic growth led the British to reassess their stance. As a result, Griqualand West was annexed in 1873, followed by the annexation of the South African Republic in 1877. In the late 19th century, the Transvaal region in South Africa had a population of approximately 36,000 to 45,000 Boers who were mainly living in rural areas on their farms. In addition, there were around 5,000 British settlers, with the capital city of Pretoria having about 2,250 inhabitants. It is worth noting that the majority of the Boer population strongly opposed the British annexation of the region, viewing the British presence as an occupation. Despite sending political delegations to London in 1877 and 1878, the Boers pleased to reverse the annexation were rejected. By the end of 1879, British victories against the Zulu and Bapedi groups, which had previously posed threats to the Boers, reduced the need for British troops and administrators in the Transvaal, as perceived by most of the Boer population. In response to the perceived unjustifiable and unnecessary occupation, a series of demonstrations took place against the annexation in the Transvaal. By March 1880, the election of a new Liberal government in London, known for its opposition to the annexation, helped pacify the unrest in the region. However, Prime Minister William Ewart Gladstone, preoccupied with other concerns such as the Irish issues, communicated to the Boer leaders that the British Empire would not give up control of the Transvaal. Consequently, the Boer leadership began making preparations for an insurrection, signalling their intent to resist British rule. Prelude. In November 1880, Colonel Owen Lanyon, acting under British directives, ordered the seizure of a wagon belonging to a Boer citizen named Piet Bezuidenhout for alleged tax evasion. In response, a group of about 100 armed Boers, led by Piet Cronje, intervened and successfully reclaimed the wagon. This incident prompted Lanyon to gather men from Pretoria garrison to arrest the Boers. However, realizing that his forces were insufficient to handle the escalating situation, Lanyon called backup troops from outlying garrisons and consolidated his strength in Pretoria, awaiting reinforcements from Natal. In order to safeguard the British interests in the Transvaal region, the British deployed approximately 1,800 regular troops. The main components of this force included the 94th Regiment of Foot and the 2nd Battalion, 21st Regiment Royal Scots Fusiliers. Of these troops, around 700 were stationed in Pretoria, the capital city of the Transvaal. The remaining forces were spread across smaller towns like Rustenburg, Lydenburg, Marabastad, Standerton and Wakkerstroom. This strategic distribution aimed to provide comprehensive protection to British interests throughout the region. British troop movement from Lydenburg. On the 27th of November, Lieutenant Colonel Philip Robert Anstruther, commanding officer of the 94th Regiment, received orders to withdraw his troops from Lydenburg and reinforce Pretoria. The garrison consisted of the headquarters and 2 companies of the 94th Regiment, totaling around 300 or 330 men. Similar orders were sent to other regimental companies stationed at Marabastad and Wakkerstroom. The soldiers from Marabastad departed on the 30th of November and arrived in Pretoria on the 10th of December. However, Anstruther chose to delay his departure until he could acquire a larger number of wagons. Instead of the standard 10 to 12 wagons, he waited until he had 34, which could accommodate personal items, rations, and all the quartermaster's stores. As a result, the journey, covering approximately 188 miles or 303 kilometers, began on the 5th of December. He left roughly 60 men to hold Lydenburg, taking approximately 245 to 270 soldiers, 2 wives, a widow, and 2 children back to Pretoria. The British were also accompanied by around 60 native Africans to drive the wagons and look after the oxen. Anstruther's large wagon train faced various challenges during their journey, resulting in slow progress, despite aiming for an average of 9 miles or 14 kilometers per day. Factors such as swollen river crossings and muddy trails often limited their distance to as little as 3 miles or 5 kilometers on some days. After reaching Middelburg, which was less than halfway through their journey on December the 15th, the group decided to pause for a day, allowing their oxen much needed rest. However, their progress was further delayed when they arrived at the Olifants River, finding it impossible to cross due to high water levels. Colonel William Belliers alerted Anstruther about the potential for a surprise attack by the Boers, who were arming themselves in the vicinity. Additionally, Anstruther had received warnings from seemingly well-disposed Boers stating that insurgents were attempting to sway local sentiments against his advances. According to modern historian John Laband, Anstruther was pursuing perceived as confident, affable, and unconcerned, displaying a friendly disregard for the Boers' capacity to coordinate and mount effective actions. On December the 19th, the British troops crossed the Olifants River and made their way towards Honey's Farm, located 6 miles east of Bronkhorstspruit River. However, their preparations were inadequate and put them at a disadvantage. Despite prior warnings, the soldiers were carrying only 30 rounds of ammunition per man, instead of the recommended 70 rounds. Additionally, only 4 scouts were deployed, 2 in front and 2 at the rear, which left the main body vulnerable to surprise attacks. Furthermore, 40 men accompanying the troops were unarmed as they were engaged in playing the band, further diminishing their defensive capabilities. Boer Commando. While Anstruther's column was advancing from Lydenburg, a significant number of Boers were gathering around Pretoria. On the 13th of December, they held elections and declared their independence from British rule, effectively re-establishing the South African Republic. One of the Boer leaders, Francois Gerhardus Joubert, received orders to prevent Anstruther from reaching Pretoria. Joubert left Heidelberg on the 18th of December and joined forces with 2 other groups along the way. They camped between Pretoria and Bronkhorstspruit on the night of the 19th and planned the attack for the following morning. Nicholas Smith, a seasoned fighter from the Petty Wars, advocated for a flexible approach rather than a fixed ambush. As a result, the Boer forces continued their journey eastwards towards Middelburg to intercept the British. In Middelburg, Francois Gerhardus spurred the mobilization of the Boer militia. A commando was dispatched from there, travelling parallel to the British forces but remaining concealed from their sight. Interestingly, British officers did observe a notable abundance of riding horses at a Boer farm, although they disregarded this observation as insignificant. If you made it this far, I hope you're really enjoying this channel, and if you'd like to support the creation of more content like this, because all contributions are greatly appreciated, consider joining the channel in the membership tab or check out the Patreon link in the description below.